Hi, in this episode I'll be talking to David Kennard from Neptunes Army of Rubbish Cleaners, better known as NARC. Over a brew, David tells me about how NARC was formed and the kind of work they do clearing rubbish and spent fishing gear along the Pembrokeshire coast. Do you fancy a brew?
Hello, mate. Can you hear me?
Yes. Hello.
Happy days, mate. Happy days. Welcome.
I'm not very modern, sorry.
Modern or technical savvy?
Both.
Not a problem, mate. It's nice to get you on, finally.
Where are you ringing from then, Andy?
I'm in Wigan. Fortunately, not locked down, mate. for now.
Yeah, but Manchester's really bad, isn't it?
Well, Andy Burnham's fighting the good fight for us, isn't he?
Yes.
So,
yes. On another note, maybe he should have been leader of the Labour Party at one stage. Who knows?
Well, I've heard there's calls for him to be Prime Minister.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. So where do you normally go diving then, Andy?
North Wales, quite a lot around Anglesey. Yeah, I love Anglesey around that way.
I dived that way once. We did the Missouri.
Yeah, I've dived that, yeah. But it was...
We did, like I said, we did it as a shore dive.
Yeah.
And my mate had this book.
Yeah.
And the one thing we had to do was watch the burger van on the way
transit.
down. Have you seen this or not?
No.
It was in the book. This guy has been told he can't move his burger van because it's one of the transits for the wreck. That's just ridiculous.
Well, we got chucked in and it was choppy. So choppy. Honestly, it was probably touch and go whether we should have been in. But it was one of them you needed to have a negative entry and get down. And we jumped in,
right.
and my mate was panicking so much because of whatever. He hadn't done his dry suit up properly, so it was leaking.
Oh, God. No.
So, you know when you've got the cross, the front access, the big cross, your belly zip, but normally you've got two, haven't you? The brass one and a plastic one. So,
right, okay.
So he says to me, Andy, my zip's not fastened up properly. So I've grabbed his plastic zip, lifted it right up to find his brass one. Wasn't there. He doesn't even have a brass one. It's just a one zip, but the plastic one. So I've opened his dry suit almost fully open, and the entire Irish Seas jumped in. So that went down really well.
Quality.
Yeah. So David Kennard, welcome to Fancy a Brew. If you want to give us a bit of a rundown to who you are, so people who might not have heard of you know a bit about you, and then we'll have a good chat.
Okay, so I'm David Kennard. I live down here in West Wales in Pembrokeshire. Not so sunny at the moment. But I set up a group 16 years ago. We collect litter and go fishing gear off the coast here in West Wales. I'm a BZAC open water instructor. I've been diving for just over 20 years. Pretty much an inbred sort of diver. I only know the area that I dived in. I haven't dived that far from home, to be honest. Yeah. Most of the diving is here. But for anyone who's never been here, the diving here is very good.
Do you get pretty bad sort of plankton blooms and algae blooms during the summer?
Early on, late April, early May, we get algal bloom. And sometimes, it can be really thick and it's quite bad. It makes things a lot harder then with some of the stuff that we do within the group.
See, on my doorstep are more inland sites, like abandoned quarries and stuff like that, which really suffer with that sort of bloom, but generally more throughout the year rather than just that sort of close sort of time.
I'll tell you what's interesting is on a recent dive, a night dive that we did, never mind the algal bloom, we had all the bioluminescence.
Was that good?
Oh, it's amazing, isn't it? It's really cool. It's like you move your hand very sudden, and it's like as if you're broadcasting glitter everywhere. It's really, really amazing.
We saw a little video last night, someone prancing around in the surf, just in like 2 or 3 inches of water
there's
on the
one
beach.
like that on YouTube.
It might be the same one.
The guy is surfing, and it's like as if he's on the crest of the wave. Yeah. And the bit where he is like some sort of like neon electric blue sort of colour.
It's almost like when you get a flaming sambuca. It's like the flame on the top, isn't it?
Yes. But this wasn't as prolific as that.
No.
But like I say, it was like as if you were just chucking glitter everywhere. It's amazing. Far better than the blue.
Yeah. So before we get onto the diving, things that stands out to me about you, all your photos that I've come across when I was trying to do a bit of research on you before we did this, is you're always smiling and you've got these whopping lamb chop sideburns that I'm properly jealous of. So would you suggest you're quite a jolly guy then?
I think the thing is this, isn't it? It's like, you know, if you get into conservation and stuff like that and you want to get people on board, the last thing you want to be is a doom and gloom merchant. You know, the message is important, but how to put it over could be done in better ways rather than walking around with a black cloud on your shoulder all the time and thinking, oh, we're doomed, and all of this. But get out there, do an action, and then, you know, then you'd be proud that you took part in something and you were someone who tried to make a difference. But yeah, I'm quite, you know, easygoing, jolly sort of bloke. I try and run the group in the same way.
Yeah.
So, you know, because too often you notice, like with too many groups, as politics pops up and it ruins things, you know. But as far as I'm concerned, the most important thing all the time is safety. You know, luckily enough, we've been going for 16 years and, you know, still going strong.
Let's get off the politics then and get on to the fun stuff. What brew were you drinking in the 20-minute build-up?
A loose leaf one. So not in like a tea bag made of plastic and things.
Yeah. A loose leaf one?
Yeah, so my tea is like a loose leaf one, just for one of the supermarkets. Not anything fancy or expensive, but just not in a bag.
Mate, so do you have the posh little finger when you're drinking?
Why, of course, you've got to put your pinky out when you drink a cup of tea. How else would you drink a cup of tea? You've got it. It balances the weight in the cup.
Oh, mate, you're a legend. I didn't realise how much plastic was actually in tea bags till recently.
Oh, shocking, isn't it?
I thought it was just a paper bag squashed together with a bit of somebody's slav.
No, there's plastics in there. There's plastics in there, and, you know, and slowly but surely, I'm sure, you know, it's, you know, we're all eating and drinking and taking in plastic in other ways other than what we would think we are. You know, but it's interesting stuff, isn't it? I mean, you know, I mean, as divers and stuff like that, we think of marine habitats and things like that. But we you know, maybe we should also think about other wildlife that feeds from the sea or the rivers and so on, such as birds and things like that, you know, which can also act as transport for these plastics from one place to another.
Yeah. There's been enough talk in the press, hasn't there, recently about people wearing these face masks with the elastic straps and not cutting them, or just ditching them in the street. I went to somewhere earlier tonight and I forgot my mask. Fortunately, I could get one from on my way to where I was going. There's one on the floor, and it looked brand new, just tossed.
Yeah,
on the floor. It's
wrong, isn't it? It's wrong.
Yeah, it's annoying.
You know. So your tea is what, vodka looking or what?
Oh, I just finished. I just finished my my brewing. I've just had some new mugs made. Can you see them?
Oh right, okay. It looks like something from Jerry Anderson.
So I did have.
Sorry.
So I was on PG Tips T1 with loads of milk.
Oh right.
But I wish it was vodka, to be fair. But no, it was just some water, some posh fizzy water.
All right, not corporation champagne.
Close. San Pellegrino. No, it was only the other day I was talking to someone about tea and the amount of caffeine in it doesn't. So every cup of tea doesn't count for your water intake if it's got caffeine. So
that's it.
Apparently not. So if you drink caffeine free, that's like just drinking water. As in, you're supposed to do 2 litres a day. The average man.
Right.
So,
but even if you looked at herbal teas, a lot of the boxed up herbal teas are full of caffeine as well.
Yeah, it's but I don't know if I could cope without the caffeine. I drink that much tea in a day. I bet you I have 10 cups of tea a day easily.
Do you know what? On my mother's side of the family,
Yeah.
they used to import tea.
Really?
They used to have 2 clippers back in the day, and they used to bring tea in, and they used to make the blends up
No way.
of tea. Yeah.
Where are the clippers now? Bottom of the salty sea?
Probably been burnt or rotten away. This was a long time ago. I'd never even met the people who owned them. No.
Ah, flipping heck.
No.
So if you've been diving about 20 years, after 4 years of diving, which is where I'm at now starting this podcast, what made you sort of get involved or start up, or sort of, what was the inception for Neptune's Army of Rubbish Cleaners?
Right, a couple of things. One thing, even when I had first started diving, I was doing like quite a lot of beach cleanups, because if anybody knows anything about where I live in Pembrokeshire, it's basically known for its coastline.
Yeah.
You know, we got some of the best beaches probably in the UK, maybe even the world, with 1 or 2 of them. But, you know, and those things are just open then to catching litter. But having been diving for a while, you know, you're just seeing stuff, you know. I mean, okay, we do target sites where we know we're going to find stuff. I mean, because to be fair, you know, most of the time, most of us do a dive, we don't see litter, you know.
No.
But, you know, depends on what you want to do, doesn't it? I mean, if you go diving on a shipwreck, you're probably going to find ropes, nets, lost fishing gear, anything. You go to, like, angling sites, you're going to find monofilament line, weights. I mean, on one day alone, you know, with the diver, we removed 730 fishing weights.
No way.
Yeah.
So what would you do with them? Do you weigh them in, or do you
no, God, no.
melt them down?
We melt them down. We got different molds. We got £2, £4, £6 molds, and then we melt them down, and we either sell them on then for funds for the group, or give them then to the volunteers in the groups, and they got enough lead or whatever to go dive, you know, for themselves to go diving. The monofilament line and all this sort of stuff is the issue. You know, I mean, the lead is not going to cause much in the way of damage for fish or that sort of environment. Whereas, like the line, that can take 600 years, according to scientists, to biodegrade.
Yeah.
You know, I don't know how these people come to those figures. I don't know.
It is an odd one, isn't it? How do you know that this bag's going to take 1,000 years to rot down because you haven't had one for 100 years?
No,
so we don't know.
Exactly. So it is hard sometimes when people say these things. But sometimes, you know, when we're doing a dive, we'll see things, and you know, there's just no excuse. There's no excuses for when we're doing dives at certain sites for us to find batteries on the seabed. You know, whether they be car batteries, torch batteries, whatever, or microwaves, or anything that people can flight it. I mean, you know, we found everything from a car to a kitchen sink when we've gone diving. Wow. You know, we've literally lifted a kitchen sink.
Yeah.
No taps, because obviously they were worth something, so someone had them for the brass. Really, and just chucked the sink top.
See, I've had this discussion a few times about fly tipping. Whilst I don't agree with it, I can kind of understand it in the respect of, for me, I'm self-employed. I run a property maintenance business, and every now and again I have some rubbish. But for me, the council make it very difficult to get rid of that rubbish.
I'm like you then, right? I'm a plumber, okay?
Yeah.
You know, everything's water for me.
Yeah.
Whether I'm in it, working with it, or whatever, it's all water. But, you know, I still have the issues that you have. If I do a bathroom suite, for instance, and I'm taking all the tiles down and they got plasterboard on them, then, you know, the people who work at the amenity centres then want to just have plasterboard but no tiles. But you try and take a tile off a plasterboard.
It's horrendous, isn't it?
It's not happening. It's not happening. So then you just leave them there with them, and they say, oh, you know, but yeah, they could get quite awkward, couldn't they? Really, to be
But
honest.
I've been stuck on jobs where I've not got enough to put in a skip, but
No.
the customer wants me to get rid of that waste. Now, it's not a lot. It might just be a bag full, but I can't put it in the black bin because they've asked me to take it away. I can't put it in my own black bin because my black bin's full, or I'm supposed to only put household waste in. I can't use the council tip. Now, so I just say no. I don't even take the job on when there's waste because of that reason. But obviously, there's less scrupulous people out there that are advertising on Facebook and all the rest of it, aren't there? That saying, "Yeah, we'll get rid of your rubbish," and then they just go and throwing it wherever they can get rid of it.
Yes.
I guess
Well,
I'm not blaming the council, but I think the council could make it slightly easier for us.
Well, yes, probably, but it's like there's never enough eyes, is there?
Nah.
It doesn't matter what the issue is. To some degree, there's always unscrupulous people out there doing things. It doesn't have to be that. For instance, if we look at diving and marine conservation things, then you could say, for instance, like some of the stuff with the declining of fish stocks or something like that. That fish are at certain times when it is caught is not necessarily being monitored properly, not like a proper track and trace system.
Yeah.
So in other words, if they're catching juvenile fish,
Yeah.
Where they could potentially put them back, they don't. They use it then as bait for another form of fishing that they will use.
When I was looking through your website for NARC,
Yeah.
so you've got quite a calendar of different events that you put on.
Yes.
It looks like Pembrokeshire's not actually that badly affected by COVID infections. But
we haven't been all the way through this.
But because Wales is locked down as a oner, you're going to be massively affected by that lockdown. So how has it affected your calendar?
Right. So as you suggested, we put together a calendar, and up until this COVID-19, the boat we go on would take 12 people. Yeah. But up until just now, we would book up for 10, then leave in 2 free spaces. So when it came nearer to the date, if we had new volunteers, they could then jump in on one of those dates.
Right.
Because the worst thing in the world is like when you have volunteers coming through and you say to them, "Oh, there's no room this year, sorry."
Yeah.
The chances are you're never going to hear from them again. So if I can keep communication going with those people, then hopefully I can bring them in. And then I think to a degree that's probably this, a success with the group, because anything about volunteer groups, you need new blood all the time. Every year we're always going to lose members, but every year we're always going to gain members. I would think that as a membership would go of divers, we're probably somewhere between the mid-20s to late 20s. Of volunteers, and the volunteers come from close and also further afield. We've got people who come out with us who are from Birmingham. We've got people who come who are in other parts of South Wales, but for them Pembrokeshire is their home diving patch, if you like.
I get you.
They don't seem to dive where they're from. So when they would then come out on the boat with us for the day, we give them like pouches then with lifting bags in for objects to find, and attach the lifting bag, send them up, and so on. And then we also then design collecting bags. So, for instance, like if we were doing a shipwreck, there's usually like loads of ropes and stuff all tangled around it.
Yeah.
So with the larger sacks, then we then fill those with ropes and things like that, and then send that then to be collected on the surface by the boat. The angling cleanups are usually done with a smaller bag, And inside that bag then is like another flap to act as like a non-return valve. Because sometimes if you got like fishing line and other things like that, when you put your hand in to put stuff in, you could have it that you would be pulling out as much back out with your hand as when you put in.
Yeah, I've had that before.
So I've got like a drawstring there then, and we just put our hand through, drop it in, pull your hand away. And it seems to work. It's quite a simple idea. But then after we've done a day's diving, every pair that comes out with us are given like a collection form to fill out. So then they would go through their own particular bags of rubbish that they find and then quantify them per group as to what they find. So like I say, if we were doing angling sites, there could be a whole list of things. There's fly tipping sites we do. The litter then is varied. If we're doing ghost fishing sort of projects, then that's different again. One day we went out, we lifted like 19 lost lobster pots and released about 260 fish, shellfish, all sorts of fish. On one of the last dives we did, we have found like a bit of a dumping ground for commercial fishing gear, and on some of the pots that we had lifted, in one of them we found a buried lobster.
Wow!
With the young eggs on it.
Yeah.
And that then shows the importance, I think, of why the fishing community, why it's in their interests to communicate more so with ourselves. We are, like I say, a local community sort of group. We do work with about 8 local fishermen. So they'll say, "Oh, Dave, we've lost some pots, so and so. Can you go and have a look for them?" And then off we go then and see if we can find them. We do return then their equipment back to them because obviously these pots could be anything from £60 to £100, and because we're only doing like pretty much inshore stuff, the strings are at maximum 12 pots or something, whereas like some people who are fishing further out to sea are using 40, 60, 80.
Jeez.
These are huge strings, thousands and thousands of pounds worth of money. But it's not just that though either, is it? It's like, if you look into the figures of this, the marine commercial fishing gear that's lost, we're talking like 640,000 tons a year in the sea.
Yeah.
When you look at that atlas map behind you, look at all the white bits there, there's got to be massive sections of that with a big issue. It's been well documented over the years. And if you look at Hawaii has 2 marine gyres off the coast of Hawaii, and a gyre is like a big collection of marine litter.
Yeah.
That is, and then depending on the wind direction, it depends on what side of the island gets hit by the rubbish.
Yeah.
Is there 5 or 7 marine gyres, and Hawaii's got 2. And if you watch some of the documentaries, it's quite alarming, to see what's being still thrown up.
Yeah.
On the beaches, and how old some of it is.
Well, that was one of the first things that ever sort of brought it to mind. Rather than watching Blue Planet with David Attenborough, it was before that, one of the Bear Grylls type programs where they were on an island, and they went to one side of the island, and it was like this bay was just full of tubs and plastics and polystyrene type crap, and they were using it obviously to help them survive. But one side of the island looked beautiful and idyllic, and then you go over there and it just literally looked like a bin wagon. I just tipped its arse end into the sea.
But when when, say, for instance, like, you know, like your whole idea of time for a brew sort of
Yeah.
thing, to be honest, the whole idea for N.A.R.C came over a pint of beer.
Did it?
Yeah. One of I used to play rugby when I was quite a bit younger, and one of the guys who was in the team I played for worked for Keep Wales Tidy.
Right.
So he asked me, he said, "What do you know about divers and collecting rubbish off the seabed?" I said, "Oh, that was the dive club I was a member of."
Yeah.
But, you know, what became apparent after time was it was probably better to make the whole thing inclusive, because obviously collecting litter off the seabed is not for everybody. You know, the average UK diver does like 20 dives in a season. I'm sure they don't want to do 20 of them, unless they're me, probably, collecting litter off the seabed.
Yeah.
You know, so yeah, you know, sometimes the best things are done that way. You know, sometimes direct action and those sort of things is a better way, rather than waiting to have a committee meeting and talk about, well, we'll do this and we'll do that, and then it takes months and nothing's getting done. You know, when I first set N.A.R.C up, I made a load of posters up.
Yeah.
And I put them up in the local dive centres. So, you know, so I had some with like SpongeBob characters on them.
Yeah.
And one of them, because like on SpongeBob, they live in Bikini Bottom.
Right.
Right. So I put on the poster, Bikini Bottom in need of cleaning. If you would like to help volunteer with this new group, please contact me or leave your information at the dive centre.
Yeah.
You know, and like I say, the whole idea of conservation and stuff like that, it has to be fun, but it also has to be safe.
Well, that nicely sort of brings me on to what kind of training, if at all, do new volunteers sort of go through other than being divers?
We're not a training organisation. We're an organisation that, like I said earlier, we're open to divers from all agencies.
Yeah.
And, you know, it's up to them as divers then to have the qualifications that would be suitable then to come out with us. So in other words, something like a search and recovery course, whether it be BZAC, SAA, PADI. There's loads of new agencies today as well. So we and then, you know, we assess divers on the day, you know, and that's probably the best way with anything, isn't it? Throw them in the deep end and see if they're any good.
That's more my train of thought. I like that. You know, go in, let's see what we can do, and if we can do it, get on with it, and if not, maybe a bit of guidance or something.
And the other thing is as well, with a new volunteer, it is in some ways to show them how social or friendly or you know, welcoming a group can be. And I think it has to be. It has to be. There's no point in, you know, having a group who are sat in one corner who are talking to another lot over there. That just wouldn't work for me. It wouldn't be on my boat anyway.
No.
You know?
it can be quite intimidating getting into that sort of club atmosphere, because you stereotypically you get those that have been in forever and kind of look at new blood as being danger.
Yes, but you know what you've got, isn't it?
Yeah.
And sometimes, you know, like you're saying, it is a bit different taking on an unknown quantity. Just because somebody has all the qualifications doesn't mean at times that they are worthy of those qualifications. As with regards to practical skills, it's like for me in particular. If I was to say anything about me as a diver, I would say that my qualities are about organising days of diving, you know, Also, knowledge of the slack water times in my area, knowledge of sites, all those things are my strengths. It's like I'm not one of those ones who's going to sit down and work out, oh, we need so-and-so type of gas and we'll have a run time of this. We're going to be on a trapeze over there at so-and-so time and all of this sort of stuff. We don't. We do, our sort of diving is like recreational sport diving with a conservation angle.
I get it.
You know, like, for instance, when I dive with a 15-litre and maybe a 3-litre pony, or just recently I bought a 7-litre aluminium bottle with the idea then of using that as an alternative source for filling lifting bags.
Yeah. Saves on your feeding gas then, doesn't it?
Yeah, exactly. And also, I think sometimes you could be a bit surprised, couldn't you, if you were filling loads of lifting bags as to how quickly you'd be emptying your bottle.
Yeah, quite easy to go task loaded and just be not checking your gauge ever, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. You think, oh, I'm going to hop in the water, it's 16 metres, 18 metres, I'll be in there for a good hour or more. But then all of a sudden, you're thinking, right, okay, I've lifted 6 lobster pots, I've lifted an anchor, or I've lifted whatever. It's like, oh. Then you start looking at your thing, and you're thinking, oh, rubbing out, I better, we better finish the dive now and get back on the boat for a cup of tea.
Yeah.
Sorry to interrupt this episode to drop another plug for my Patreon account, but I do spend a good 7 or 8 hours producing, editing and launching each episode of this podcast, and sometimes days on the production of my YouTube videos. So to help keep this content strong and valuable to you, I'm asking that you become a sponsor and a patron of the Are You a Scuba Diver Fancy a Brew podcast. When you become a supporter, not only will you have my undying appreciation for helping support the podcast, but you'll be able to take advantage of some of the many tiered benefits that come with it, some of which includes official merchandise. If you'd like to become a patron of the podcast, then visit www.patreon.com/fancyaBrew. There you'll see all the different levels of subscription and how to join the Fancy a Brew community. So without further ado, let's get back to the episode.
So what's the most glamorous thing you've found?
I think it's more so the experiences rather than the glamour. It's like one of the fly tipping site, for instance, that we do, one of them, when we were doing the dive, we found a washing machine drum.
Yeah.
Right? So I then attached a clip from a lifting bag my side. My buddy then went to do one his side. And with this, there must have been a petrified conger eel in the drum who made a boat for it.
Wow.
So he just swam out,
But you crapped it, didn't
you? There's been... I think sometimes when the volunteers come out with us, it's the rewarding experience they get of putting something back, like unhooking a fish or untangling shellfish, or and it's a different sort of buzz,
Yeah.
I mean, I've got people who come out with it who, in their past, a lot of the diving they've done is probably going out with a crab hook and a bag and going off looking for stuff. Whereas when they come out with us, they seem very happy. It's like as if, in some ways, some of them have changed their diving ideas and thoughts on things by being sat around with other sort of like conservation type people.
Almost like a My Name is Earl kind of karma coming back on you.
Yeah. They seem like more than happy now to be releasing and rescuing fish. I mean, and that then gives them a better sense of being, if you like, and like to have done something, and like I said, to take part in a positive action, to give something back. It's like last year, I got involved with a project with a local special needs school. One was in a wheelchair, Most of them were of an autistic background.
Yeah.
So, but they, over the year, had been doing like marine conservation artwork projects in the school.
Yeah.
So then I went along there then and gave them a talk then about what we do. And then I thought then, right, these guys can come and watch us do one of our sites, one of our cleanup dives. So they had a special day out, a couple of minibuses, and then they all came over and they watched us do what we did.
Awesome.
But we also involved the children.
Yeah.
Like I said, they were autistic and they were really keen and wanted to help. So we always have like dive marshal slates.
Mm-hmm.
So I was walking around with different children, asking then the divers, like telling the child, this bloke or this volunteer, his or her name is blah, blah, blah. Now you need to ask them the cylinder size and what gas they have and how much gas they have in their cylinder.
Oh,
so,
sweet,
you know, we were just involving the children.
Yeah. Well, things like that, I bet they felt dead important, didn't they? Like they had a real role to play in that.
Oh, they loved it. And then after that, then the teachers and everybody else took them off for an ice cream and a Coke or a cup of tea or whatever, you know. So they had a lovely day out.
Nice.
And then a month or two later, I was walking in the local town where the children were from, and I was meeting these parents then on the high street. Oh, my child keeps talking about what they did with you, and we all think it's brilliant and all this.
Mega.
And it is. It was great. And I tell you what, it's the first time since I'd left school that I ended up having to go back for a school assembly.
Awesome. Obviously, we've touched on the stuff that you're pulling out of the water, and a lot of it you can give back, like the lobster pots and perhaps some of the nets and whatnot. And something that's come to mind for me is doing something similar to you, but more on an inland site. We're very close to the Lake District, and I dived in Lake Windermere a couple of weeks ago, and it was full of rubbish. Literally just teeming. I was shocked, to be honest.
If you and some friends wanted to do something like that, then I'm sure myself and some of the people from down here would be more than happy to come up to the Lake District and partake in a clean.
Yeah.
You know, we've done things before in other parts of the UK, but we've also done things in other parts of the world as well. You know, it's important to spread this message of conservation. You know, some of the issues, like I say, you know, education, raising awareness and all this sort of stuff. But sometimes the problems can also be us as consumers and what we use and what we buy. And, you know, I'm not a huge fan, if you like, with regards to recycling stuff.
Right,
I'm more a person who likes to reuse.
I get you.
You know, it's like I make my own sort of like fizzy drinks here.
Do you?
So I've got glass bottles, so I fill the glass bottles up, and then I can have a drink.
When you're saying fizzy drinks, do you mean beer?
No.
I thought you were trying to steer around that you had a little cheeky brewery going on in your back kitchen.
No. I tell you what, though, like I said, when we went away, the last time we went away, we went to Sri Lanka.
Yeah.
And we were staying in this like family-run B&B sort of thing, and there were some Russians there, and I was like the last of our group to go downstairs, and they called me over, and they said, "Oh, try some of this drink," and it looked like water, like your water, and it definitely wasn't. It started off cold, and the next thing you know, I just went like a big drink. It was like really hot. It's like stuff they make at home. That was alcoholic.
I thought you were going to say the next thing you woke up 3 days later with an itchy arse.
No.
The stuff that you can't return, like you know your lobster pots or whatever. What are you allowed to get rid of, or what can you dispose of?
Well, with regards to the monofilament line and things like that, I just collect it. I just collect it. there's nothing I can do with it. It's like I did find that, you know, when we first set the group up, is that I could send it to China.
Right.
And then I thought, well, no, that's not happening. How can that be green, you know? But I know, like, some groups, it's different. I was like, where we are, you know, like commercial fishing-wise, we find pots. We don't find nets.
Yeah.
And like I say, we work with the local community fishing group as well. But I know, like in Cornwall, there's a group like ours called Fathoms Free, and they mainly find nets.
Yeah.
And then they've got a connection then that they use. I think it's with something called Odyssey International, and they are then turning the nets. They're then turning them then into kayaks.
No way. That's ace.
No, it's like, if you start looking into things, I got talking to someone a while back who makes swimwear from recycled plastic that has come from commercial fishing.
Wow, that's ace.
It is, isn't it? But then, yeah, yes and no. It's like, you know, when you start melting plastics down,
gases,
you know, especially if it was done in a third world country, you know, you can imagine there'd be very little PPE or anything, you know.
Yeah.
Some child doing it for next to nothing, inhaling all those fumes. It's not a good thing, is it?
No.
But, you know, like I say, reuse rather than recycle. But then there's only so many hammocks you can make out of nets.
Yeah. Certainly around this neck of the woods, where it's not very often warm enough or dry enough to get him one.
No.
Well, yeah, Paul was saying, with all this waste he pulled out, he really struggled to get rid of it legally, you know, so took it to his council, and they were like, nah, we don't want to know, it's your waste, so you can put it back through your own recycling bins slowly. He said, well, that'll take me about 5 years, or you can pay for it. I think he paid about £2,000.
And this is, again, is another issue then, though, isn't it? It's like when you do things with the council, and to be honest, I put my hand up, you know, we do take stuff to the amenity sites like everybody else does, but then this all goes into landfill. You know, like I say, the problem is our consumerism, our lifestyles, and so on. These things we need to, like, step back and have a hard look at ourselves and just see about what we can do to help make a change. You know, and then, you know, go from there. It's like, for instance, like I don't use, well, I mean, my hair is never the best, but I don't use shampoo. I use like blocks of soap and things like that.
Yeah.
Because obviously they are not coming out of a single-use plastic bottle. And with this soap, then I then can shave. I can do whatever. You know, in the past, I've even made my own toothpaste. You know, there's things you can do. You know, and it's not that hard. I mean, when you start looking at toothpaste, one of the biggest things that's an ingredient there was bicarbonate of soda, which some of us might even have in our kitchen cupboards, without knowing it. And it is used in cleaning products. You know, it's not cranky or weird. It's just something, you know, that is easy to do.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think the dental associations would approve of it, because obviously they probably wouldn't make any money from people making their own toothpaste, and the same goes for using like the shampoo soap bars. I mean, when you look at some of the adverts on the television or whatever for shampoos, and they go on about things like pantipeptides and things like that, I haven't got a clue what they're talking about. You know,
it's definitely not bicarb soda, is it?
I just want to put something in my hair, give my head a good scratch, wash it out, and know it's clean. You know, so it doesn't need to be any of those things. A block of soap is more than enough.
Yeah, it's a cracking idea. You know? I never thought. I mean, I struck up very early on with this podcast, I struck up a friendship with a company out in Florida called Stream to Sea that tried to make really ocean and water friendly products. So much like you say, just using that bar of soap obviously reduces your plastic content.
Yes.
They're reducing what's in the actual products. It doesn't contain any of that.
You're looking at things like all the degreasing agents and the SLESs and parabens and all these sort of things.
Yeah.
And these are very strong agents that we are putting into our washing machines, which then go into wastewater systems, then have to be treated and then put back into the watercourse.
So you could debate this forever, couldn't we? It's horrendous.
Yes.
With regards sort of advertising and getting your name and your work out, obviously you've got a website and a Facebook and Instagram. But have you had any sort of press or bigger media coverage?
Yeah, I've been on the one show. We dived with Miranda, and she is also one of our patrons as well for the group. We've got Miranda and Yolo Williams.
Well, both of them have just been on my mate's podcast. So they met Yolo up at, it was up sort of North Wales way. I'm trying to think, was it Lake Vimrey or something like that? Up that way.
Oh, Vernwy, yeah.
Yeah, Vernwy.
He lives up by there, I think.
That's probably why. And then you went round to Miranda's. I think they had lunch in her garden or something.
I think she's down towards Bristol.
Yeah.
So we've done stuff with them. We ended up on BBC One Lunchtime News.
Yes.
We've had some big things. And one of an interesting thing that we got involved in there was a funding project. Am I allowed to mention companies?
Yeah, get on with it. Go on, do it.
Well, they've got a name that sounds like Chubby Cheeks, but they do surfwear. Fat Face. Okay.
You said it sounds like Chubby Cheeks. I was like, what
sounds right, okay. That is how I work in my...
That's brilliant, mate. Yeah, Fat Face. I know Fat Face well, yeah.
Right. They gave us like a nice big large amount of money, and we made a video film then using local businesses, and then the film then was to be shown in their shops.
Brilliant.
So it's only like a 2.5 minute film.
Yeah.
But if you do it for longer, people just switch off and they have a quick look and then they're walking around, rummaging around looking for what they're looking. They haven't gone there. Oh, look, those guys are on the video again. Let's watch that.
Yeah.
They haven't gone there for that. They've gone there to buy clothes. That's another issue as well, isn't it? Again, consumerism with regards to clothes and cotton and water. It's all a bit worrying. But then, like I say, not to worry. Try and be an answer and be proactive.
I think what's good though is we do get 2 of those bags a week. You know those bin bags that get posted through your door? That I don't really send the Man United shirts off to the middle of Africa.
Yeah.
We only ever use them.
Well, the one year I had, the other year I had some new T-shirts made up for the group volunteers, and they were made from recycled cotton.
Yeah.
So polo shirts and whatever. But when I first started doing that sort of thing, though, it was like a rock group tour T-shirt.
Yes. With all dates on the back.
NARC on tour sort of thing, with all the different dates and venues.
Yeah.
And then I also then came up with like quite a funny logo then, or a phrase for what we do. So it would say like NARC, our diving is rubbish. Because it's like our sort of logo, if you like, was a cross between the Keep Wales Tidy logo and something like the Anti-Nazi League logo, where they have the bin where the Anti-Nazi League, where they drop the swastika into the bin.
Yeah.
Well, this our like thing was a bit similar to that, like a stick man sort of thing, That so that's where the inspiration then came from for the logo. But it's like the name N.A.R.C was something I came up with, but we could also have been called Pratt or something, Poseidon's Refuse Aquatic Team.
That'd have been good. That would have been well funny.
But I think N.A.R.C's a bit better.
So what ideas for expansion have you got? Are you going to try and share the wealth around the UK or around the world, or?
We've, before lockdown and COVID, or probably during that time. Well, anyway, when we'd been out to Sri Lanka, and we dived in 2 different locations out there. The other one, which sounds bizarre, but even in tropical places, diving gets cancelled for environmental factors. So one of the dives we penciled in to do out there got cancelled. I only ever think of that happening here, not somewhere abroad. So we went out to Sri Lanka and trying to spread the message there. And the first time we went there, it was the first time that the one village sort of area had even done any beach cleans. We turned up and there was a big ceremony going on in the square, and they were saying, "Oh, this is all down to the world famous team from Wales called N.A.R.C." And we had to stand there, and they put up the Sri Lankan national flag and singing the national anthem. And we had to stand there, and it was a bit surreal. It was a bit strange.
Are you being a Welshman? Are you quite a good singer?
Tone deaf, mate.
Oh, mate, I thought you were going to jump up and start joining in with that national anthem.
No, last time I was out there, I was trying to learn some of the local language.
Yeah,
that's a bit different. There's a lot of the letters are like circles and lines on them and so on. But the last 2 times we've been out there as well, not only have we been out there to do the diving, but we've also gone and made a connection out there with a deaf school for some of the local street children, which is on the outskirts of Colombo. So the 2 times we've been there, we've gone there and given them like stuff for the school. Basically pencils, pens, toys, all that sort of thing. But if we could get back out there, we were thinking that it would be nice to go there for 2 days and stay there, paint the school, fit some new doors for them, that sort of thing, do some of the maintenance work rather than them, lose their funding on something like that.
I get you.
I mean, it was quite interesting for me because as a young lad, I wasn't born deaf, but I had hearing issues from when I was about 5 to when I was about 11.
Right.
So to go there, that was quite interesting. And it was the same, like I said earlier, when we did the stuff with the autistic children, is like in my past, I had helped out with like special needs gymnastics club locally here in Pembrokeshire.
Right.
And that sort of thing is great to get that giving back and also the rebound reaction. Like to see the smiles on the children's faces. It's like if you're running around in a circle and you accidentally trip yourself up. Because you got these children, they're like 10 and 12, and then they beat you to the line because you've fallen over. Priceless.
Yeah, absolutely. I suppose it doesn't do any harm. It's good publicity in that a lot of magazines or whatever would take that extra bit of a story and be happy with that, and in doing that, it kind of adds a bit of gravitas to what work you've done because it's a nice to read, isn't it?
Yeah, but like I say, it's nice.
Not about that. I know.
It's nice to be involved with community projects, you know, to benefit all. Not just ourselves. There is a difference, I suppose, with what we're doing, isn't it? Because we're putting into factors here. We're underwater. We're using Scuba. It's not like going to a local park and picking up a bag load of rubbish that's been dumped. You got to factor in slack water times. Other people might need to know that you're going to do what you're doing, like the local port authority. You have to get a notice to mariners or something. Whereas, I mean, to be fair, every one of us can do something. It doesn't have to be doing stuff in the sea. It could be even when you walk into the shop. If you see something, even if you haven't dropped it, pick it up. Dispatch of it properly. Because, like you were saying earlier, these masks, which have an effect on our wildlife, it's a similar story to what was happening years back with the plastic rings that were on cans.
Yeah.
With hedgehogs and the like having issues with those. It's all the same thing. It's just popped up again now, later on in years, with a different guise.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I've not seen. I remember on the back of crisp packets and on litter bins there was that Keep Britain Tidy group, which you talked about, the Keep Wales Tidy. I've not seen much of them for years. Now, whether that's because government funding's gone out of it or they're doing something different now, I don't know. But it seemed to be a big thing.
I know, like say, for instance, with regards to Keep Wales Tidy, is that every 3 years they are changing pretty much their projects.
Right.
So, for instance, when NARC first set up, it was under like the Keep Wales Tidy Coast Care umbrella. But then the projects kept changing, and then because we were a coast type group, we then had to look down other avenues then with regards for funding.
Yeah.
As all the people who died with us are volunteers, but yet, we're still using like charter boats and they have to be paid for. So we're very fortunate in a way, that there's some generous people out there who really like what we do.
Yeah.
And also businesses who seem to like what we do. I suppose we're quite quirky, but we tried to come out with those solutions for problems that we see. For instance, like with regards to angling line and stuff being lost, we worked locally with the Pembrokeshire Federation of Angling Coaches.
Yeah. And
between the pair of us, we produced leaflets then for anglers to give them advice on how to lose less equipment, because at the end of the day, they're not going out with the intention of losing equipment. No, who would, but some of the weights and the lures that they would use, it's not cheap equipment.
No, it's a tough one, isn't it, to sort of tick every sort of box to make everyone safe, everything recoverable and whatnot. So, what other than lockdown for a couple of weeks? Then, what have you got coming up?
Well, I've already booked up all the boats for next year, so that will all go up on the Facebook website, etc. I've just done an interview recently with somebody who was doing something on sustainable travel.
Yeah.
In other words, they were using a boat that was being powered by pedalling. They'd used their boat, and I think they came up from Oxford and so on via canals.
Yeah.
Then they got up to Bristol, and then they crossed over to sort of like Cardiff, and then they followed the coast then all the way round to Pembrokeshire.
I'm just looking at it on my map here. It's a bit far, that.
Yeah, the project they're doing, the boat, and so on, they're on like a Facebook page. It's GB360.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's quite an interesting thing. They were doing something for the BBC on sustainable travel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Interesting. Well, I say it to everyone, mate, but anyone who gives me any time of day to do an episode of this, I really appreciate your time. I'm sure you've got other things you could be doing. So thanks for coming on.
But like you say, let me know if you want to do anything at the Lake District.
Yeah.
And I'll bouncing around people in our group.
Happy
In
days.
fact, we've even got a volunteer who lives up, I think he lives up near Nantwich.
Yeah, it's not a million miles from us, maybe an hour and a half.
Yeah,
But,
he lives up that way somewhere.
Happy days, mate. Right, well, I'll see you soon.
I'll leave you be. Oh, I got Zoom on my tablet. So I'm so modern. I paid a check-in the other day by using my phone. I'd never done that before, neither.
Go on then. See you soon, Dave.
Okay.
Cheers, buddy. Bye-bye.
Ta-ra. Thank you, Andy. Bye.
No worries, mate.
Bye.
So that brings us to an end of episode 38 with my friend David Kennard. Links to all the things we discussed are in the podcast notes. You've been listening to Are You a Scuba Diver Fancy a Brew podcast with me, Andy the Northern Diver. You can find more scuba related content on my YouTube channel and the link is in the podcast notes. If you've enjoyed this episode, then please consider subscribing and leaving us a 5-star review. And to become a patron of the podcast, then visit www.patreon.com/fancyaBrew. There you'll see all the different levels of subscription and how to join the Fancy a Brew community. If there's someone or something you'd like us to discuss, then let us know via our Facebook page. Thanks for listening. See you on the next one.